We are 6 weeks away from the kickoff of the opening weekend for NAI football in 2025, and there's a lot to talk about. There's still lots of questions to be asked. Among those questions we'll be asking tonight are this: who needs a playoff win the most? Really, who needs a playoff win the most right now? As well as, will there be an NAI player taken in the NFL draft this year? If so, when was the last time an NAI player was taken in the NFL draft? And of course, the age-old question, have you met Ted? We'll ask all those questions and talk about some more things tonight here on Midwest Sports Net. You're watching college football this week. Thanks for stopping by the channel. I really appreciate that. I'm Joey McWilliams, so let's get right into it quickly. There is news, and this news I didn't see till after we got off the show last Thursday night. Now, it was out there before that, and I know that Corey from NAIF Ball had posted this too, so man, I wish I'd seen it right before we went on. We were talking about programs that might start up, and we were discussing the Frontier Conference. Would there be programs that are just starting football this year? And the answer is, well, sort of yes. St. Mary of the Woods from Indiana is taking its sprint football team and moving it to a full NAIA football team for 2026. So they're still going to play sprint football in 2025, finish out the year with the Collegiate Sprint Football League. I know that's a lot. The CSFL. Actually, we're going to use that abbreviation a little bit later on. It's going to mean something totally different, though. But with Mountain Mercy starting a football team and playing its first season in 2026, and now St. Mary of the Woods starting a full-on NAIA team playing in 2026. You have to recognize also that, unfortunately, Siena Heights will be closing its athletics for 2026. There are 94 teams in the NAIA coming into 25-26, a +1. That's a net +1, so there'll be 95 teams as of now in 2026. So the competition gets more and gets to be a little bit bigger. Now, I would say this too. You say, Joey, sprint football, what is that? Well, some of you all may know what sprint football is. It's something that I hadn't heard of until just a few years ago, although the Collegiate Sprint Football League says it's been around since 1934. I had no idea. But that is a real thing. And sprint football is just like 11-man football, except there are a few minor differences. Among those, there is a weight limit, 178-pound weight limit. And from what I've seen, there's a body fat minimum too. So you can't be too lean to play this game, but you can't be too big to play the game either. So that's a big part of it. And Coach Blaine Powell, who is with St. Mary of the Woods, has done a really good job. And no doubt he's ready for the challenge ahead of him, but he's ready for 2025 too. And for St. Mary of the Woods, for the Pomeroys, they were runners-up in the league. I don't know if it's national runners-up or not. It's a 6-team league. Runners-up in the league last year. Runners-up in the league in 2023. They won the championship in 2022, and Coach Powell says, hey, this is a team that has some unfinished business, so they're ready to get going for 2025 this year. They'll think about full NAI football in 2026, or probably December of 2025 after that. That's all right. Hey, shout out to Dave, by the way. Thank you for checking in tonight, Dave. Dave watching us, supporting Morningside, I know. So if you are watching the live show tonight, please let us know in the comments section. Get involved, if you will. We'd appreciate that. And let us know from where you are watching tonight. Okay, that's not the only news. Other news from the NAI regarding football is that flag football is going to be an invitational sport for 2025 and for the 25-26 year. And I'm excited for that. It's been a developmental sport, an emerging sport is what it's called in the NAI for the last few years. And there will now be, I believe, at least 25 teams who are starting a flag football program. There haven't been that many before. It's been an emerging sport. It's going to be a different structure to the playoffs in 2025. So, well, for 2025, 2026. And what I've read in some places, it's going to have a playoff system. Please don't tell the folks in Ottawa that they haven't been a part of playoffs before, because they've won some national championships. I'm pretty sure that Braves flag football is okay with saying they've been to the playoffs and won some titles since then. But it's going to be a different sport from that point on. So it's an invitational sport now, and that is our news for football from around the NAIA. I want to mention one other thing too from last week. We were talking about how big is the Frontier Conference. And so just to put this out there for you, how big is the Frontier Conference? This was the map we had last week. Okay. You're looking at, in football, Arizona, California, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota represented. Of course, Nebraska is represented with Bellevue and in volleyball and other sports, but what a distance there. And, what we didn't talk about last week in all of that was you got to travel a long way. I mean, this is some big time travel. And this is something that I realize NAIA programs don't often have the opportunity to travel like this. And really, they're looking at some just extraordinary travel, not more than once or twice in a season. But some of this stuff is big. A big deal was made of this last year in Division I. I mean, because you have these schools from the West Coast playing in the Big Ten now. And so the trip last year from Ohio State, to go out to play in Oregon, from Columbus, Ohio to Eugene, Oregon, 2,432 driving miles. Yeah, I'm definitely sure they did not drive that. Well, I don't think there's going to be any driving distance that's going to come into play here for some of these matchups. September 20th in the Frontier Conference has Dakota State traveling to Arizona Christian. Driving distance for this one, 1,462 miles. It's going to be a flight. It's definitely going to be a flight. Same thing. The very next week, Arizona Christian has to return the favor to that part of the country, not South Dakota, this time North Dakota, as Arizona Christian is going to take on Mayville State in Mayville, North Dakota, 1,678 driving miles. I mean, how big is the Frontier Conference? It's absolutely huge. So anyway, just something left over from last week, and I wanted to bring that in. Okay, let's start talking about questions that need to be answered right now, and we're going to look at a few things here. The first question that I would pitch to you all tonight is this: what team from last year that was just barely on the outside looking in is going to make the playoffs in 2025? And there are a few options here, so let's pitch a couple of those. How about Carroll? Carroll was on the outside looking in last year. Carroll 7-3 overall. And the season began and ended with a loss to Montana Tech. There was a loss to Montana Western in the penultimate game as well, too. So you get a loss in there to start, 7 wins, and then a loss for Carroll. So they're on the outside looking in. Now, this is the Frontier Conference. And I mention that because I know Henchman 21 may be watching at some point in time. By the way, just a pitch to Henchman 21. I researched Henchman 21. I know more about Henchman 21 now. I feel like that my horizons have been expanded. So just a shout out to you on that one. But the Frontier Conference is what it is. Can you lose some games in the Frontier Conference? Probably so, but maybe not 3, at least not now. Not the way that it was set up, at least in 2024, when there were too many teams that were winning a little bit more than that. Now, Carroll has a quarterback battle going on. Jack Perka has expended his eligibility, and Coach Troy Purcell says, hey, there are 4 quarterbacks right now that are in the hunt. And it's going to get narrowed down to a couple of quarterbacks, and then from there, obviously, they'll name a starter. But Coach Purcell was not entirely ruling out 2 quarterbacks. And that may be the case. That's what happens. Now, it's not set in stone for that, but he didn't rule it out either. But Jack Perka has some big shoes to fill. And he talked about the quarterbacks that they have. Now, this is big. Are they going to be able to make the playoffs this year? He's got quarterbacks with some arms, and they can flat out throw the ball. And it's going to be, you're talking about quarterbacks that can throw it with some heat on it. But he's talking about also quarterbacks need to be able to run the ball for him too. They need to be able to do both. And so that's what he's looking at now in this system. He has Chris Akulshin coming back as wide receiver, one of the leading receivers in the conference. He also has Carson Ochoa coming back, an All-American tight end. Hunter Peck, the defensive player of the year in the Frontier Conference, has expended his eligibility in the NAIA. However, thank you, Diego Pavia, he's going to have an opportunity to play elsewhere, and he will be with the Montana Grizzlies. So he's going to get some D1 opportunity there. So a shout out to Hunter Peck and the NAIA representing in Division I there. Do they have a chance? Absolutely, they do have a chance. I don't think you have to be undefeated in the Frontier Conference. And I don't think that anyone will be undefeated in the Frontier Conference in 2025. Now, that may rub some people the wrong way there, but I'm not sure that there's going to be anyone undefeated in the Frontier Conference. Now, that having been said, one win probably acceptable. Of course, the divisional play, that's great. One win one loss, probably acceptable. Two losses, I think it could be acceptable in 2025, depending upon what some other teams do. I think if you come out of your division with two losses, there's still a distinct possibility you could make it in. And three losses, though, 7-3 proved to be just too much for Carroll to make it in last year, and that was the way it goes. So just on the outside looking in, I think you take away one of those losses, make up one of the wins against Montana Tech there. Losing to them twice was just tough, especially to begin and in the season like that. So teams that are on the outside looking in. All right, really quickly, shout out to James. Thank you very much. I appreciate you watching too. UMW, go Dogs. We definitely appreciate the Bulldogs here on Midwest Sportsnet and love visiting with Coach Norse, and already had a chance to visit with him in the preview this summer, so that was a lot of fun. All right, let's look elsewhere. Another team just on the outside looking in. How about Campbellsville? The Tigers were 9-2 last season, and 2 one-score losses. One to Lindsey Wilson, one to Georgetown. 2025 begins and ends with a 2024 playoff team. They start with St. Francis of Indiana. They end with Georgetown. You got Pikeville, another playoff team. That's a non-conference game for Campbellsville as well. On the positive note there for Campbellsville, you've got Jagger Gillis coming back, so that's a definite. 2024, 2,690 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns for Gillis. Did not use his legs much there, so primarily a passing quarterback, but he got the job done and led the team to 9 wins on the season. Ashton Auker should be back for his junior year, and the defense did its job too, by the way. This was a defense that even in its losses, seemed to get better as the season went on, better and better as the season went on. I think the key for Campbellsville here in this one, you're going to have to find a way to beat Georgetown. And that is easier said than done for any team along the way. But for Campbellsville, 35 meetings all time, Georgetown's won 30 of them. So you're going to have to find a way to beat Georgetown in that to make it to the next level. All right, teams just barely on the outside last year. Could they find a way to make it into the playoffs this year? How about Concordia? The Bulldogs, 8-2. One of the biggest upsets of the season last year was Concordia over Northwestern in Orange City. Now, I know that there are probably some folks in Seward right now who would say, it wasn't really an upset. We expected to go in there and win. Fine, I get that. Coach Daberco would probably say the same thing too. But from an outside perspective, it was an upset, okay? You go into the home of the number 2 team in the country. You come away with a victory there. It stopped Northwestern's 23-game regular season game winning streak. It stopped Northwestern's 20-game home winning streak. I'd say it was a bit of an upset there. Now, for this year, can they take that and move on? With Coach Daberco, really, they've continued to get better and better in the GPAC. It's just a tough conference, especially once you get to that upper echelon. And Concordia, while winning one of the games against what you might say is that tier 1, if you will. I hate to say that, but I'm going to say that 1, 2, 3 teams at the top. You won 1, you lost 2. And that was the big deal. DJ McGarvey to Austin Jablonski is going to be a phrase that we do not say in 2025 when it comes to Concordia. However, they have a strong offensive line coming back. Gideon Stark is likely to be the starter at quarterback, and I think we broke that news on the preview just a little bit earlier this summer. Adam Van Cleve's going to be a senior. He's coming back at wide receiver. Carlos Colasso at running back. So you've got your offense there. I talked about the offensive line. Stark wears number 11. The other number 11 is Dalen Henson, and Henson is an All-American defensive back. He's going to be back. There are going to be a lot of fresh faces too, but I think it comes back to do they make the playoffs? They were on the outside looking in. Do they make the playoffs? I think you have to win at least 2 out of 3 against, in alphabetical order, Dordt, Morningside, Northwestern. Okay, in no order but alphabetical. Dordt, Morningside, Northwestern. I think you have to win 2 out of 3 in that. And that may put you in that position to get there. Now, of course, that means a lot of other wins in the GPAC, and which none's a given at all. So let's go ahead and stay with the GPAC here, and let's go one more. Another team that was 8-2 in 2024, and it's a team that beat Concordia last year. Dort was 8-2 overall, and this is a program under Coach Joel Penner that has picked up the momentum, I think, that's been with the program all along. And 18 years, there's been football in Dort. Now, I'm going to see if I can level this out with the camera here. I'm going to read to you the wins over 18 years, and I want you to see this pattern here. 1, 1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 5, 5, 7, 7, 9, or excuse me, 8, 7, 7, 9, 8 over the last 18 seasons. I mean, it steadily has gone up all the way through. And in Coach Penner's time, it has been 5, 5, 7, 7, 8, 7, 7, 9, 8. He's heading into year 10 this year. By the way, the FCA Coach of the Year this past year. Congratulations to Coach Penner for that honor and what he does for his players both on and off the field. This is a team that just has steadily gone up. And really, there's not much place to go but make the playoffs. So Dort has to take care of business. On defense, they've been taking care of business. I mean, it has been a stellar defense. Even in one of the losses last year, they lost to Northwestern 3-0. They held Northwestern to 3 points. Now, the offense didn't do its part in that. I get it, but that's a big part of it. 10 starters on defense, though, have graduated for Dort. That's a big deal. But Coach Penner says that I know we look like we've lost a lot, but what I also know is who's coming in to fill those shoes. And he's very confident in the players who are coming up to play defense for him this season, even though he's lost all those players on defense. Now, he loses only 3 offensive starters to graduation. One of the players coming back is Colton Cruz. He's been there, been the quarterback. He's in competition right now, though. And it's a pretty fierce competition for that QB1 spot there at Dort. So we'll see how this one shakes out. But can they make it to the playoffs after being 8-2? Well, again, I would say what I said about Concordia. You've got to take care of business and all the other things, which Dort has done. They bring a solid defense out there, which they're going to have to do. The offense has to provide more points. So there just has to be more offense there. So there's got to be more production on the offensive side, at least on the scoreboard there. And the other thing is you have to win 2 out of 3. At least you have to win 2 out of 3 against those other 3, which in this case would be Concordia, which they did last year. They lost to Morningside, lost to Northwestern. There are those 2 losses on the schedule. Just on the outside looking in. Another team that was just on the outside looking in that had that identical record. How about Evangel? 8-2 in 2024. Evangel won the first 18 games it played in the KCAC, period. Just tore through the conference in 2023, 11-0, won 7 games to get things going, lost 2 a little bit later on. The Kessinger division, which is where Evangel was last year, and the division's already been restructured now. I don't know which one has which name, so I'm not going to say that which one that Evangel's in right now. But I want to point something out. Evangel was in the Kessinger division last year. The Kessinger division in the KCAC, there's the Kessinger and there's the Bissell. These are named for 2 of the greatest coaches in KCAC history. So you don't have an East or West or whatever. And they set it up to where they can restructure things, and they are. Every 2 years, the divisions are going to be restructured. So they're going to take the win-loss records over the 2 or 4 years before, something like that, and shake it all out. And then they're going to have divisions for the next 2 years. So they've already shaken everything out. However, the Kessinger division was objectively better than the Bissell division in 23 and 24. And it's not to say that, they're just better programs or whatever. On the field, they won. When they had divisional games going on and these matchups there, they won. The Kessinger division in 2023 against the Bissell division went 25-11 in 36 games. In crossover games in 2024, the Kessinger division went 29-6. One of the games was lost to weather. It was objectively better. Evangel, against the teams in the other division in the last 2 years, was 10-0 against Bissell teams. And they're 10-0 against the teams in this new division this year. The teams in which they're playing this and the division in which they're playing this year, they're 10-0. So that is that's a big deal. Coach Chuck Hepla says discipline first. One of the big things they have is that Eric Williams is coming back at running back, their first 1,000-yard running back since 2005. The backfield's stacked, and they have Reed Potts coming back at quarterback as well. The offensive line returns 4 starters. However, on defense, they lose Bradley Myers, led the country in tackles in 23, second in the country in tackles in 24. His brother, Zach, however, is coming back for one more season there at Evangel. I think the big thing here, by the way, Evangel had 4 All-Americans last year. They've all graduated. So they lose some production without question, not only on defense, special teams as well, their kicker and their punter. That's a big deal. Evangel is going to have to win a couple of the big games outside of the crossover. I mean, they're going to be able to their crossover games are going to be, at least on paper, they look tougher than the games in their division. They need to win that division straight up. If they play like they can play and just tear through the division, again, 10-0 in the last 2 years against teams that are currently in their division, they just need to be consistent. That's how Evangel makes it back to the playoffs, just on the outside looking in last year. One more team that we'll look at just on the outside looking in, and that was Southeastern. I think Southeastern was 7-2 instead of 8-2 there. I'm not sure about that graphic. Anyway, Southeastern's going to say, hey, we had 2 losses. Oh, and by the way, the Southeastern fans are going to say, those 2 losses? There's a difference of just 10 points. And that was to the number 1 team in the country and the number 5 team in the country. Of course, it was Kaiser and St. Thomas at that point in time. The Fire gave up just more than 10 points a game on defense all year long. And in the first 4 games, pitched 3 shutouts. The defense was there for Southeastern. You have to look at this too. Even in the games that they played against Kaiser and St. Thomas, the Southeastern defense gave up 3 touchdowns only one time all year long. That was to Ave Maria. It wasn't against Kaiser. It wasn't against St. Thomas. They gave up only 2 touchdowns to both Kaiser and St. Thomas over the course of the season. This is a defense that with defensive coordinator William Henry is getting the job done for Coach Waugh. No question there. So if the defense stays strong, that's great. Offense, there might be some questions from last year to this year. And in that, I present to you this one. Henry Osted, the quarterback, not going to be there. He graduated, but not only that, he's using this graduate year of eligibility, which I thought was mainly for Division I or the NCAA. He's on the Kansas Wesleyan roster now. So he's gone across the country, and he is playing or will be playing for Coach Middleton at Kansas Wesleyan. So all you Southeastern fans that were used to cheering for Henry Osted, at least you're not going to see him in the regular season. That's for sure. We'll see how things shake out and if he makes it into the postseason and you guys find a way to match up there. Not sure about Josiah Neos. However, he just got married, so props to him for that. Southeastern needs to just continue winning, but it's kind of like the St. Thomas thing. The Bobcats for 2 or 3 years got close and had just the 2 losses. 3 losses 1 year, 2 losses. They're not making it in. They finally get to that 1 loss. They make it in the playoffs, and then they've got that momentum. Southeastern, to get back into the playoffs, probably needs to drop one of those losses. If you can find a way to beat Kaiser, if you can find a way to beat St. Thomas and take care of everything else on the schedule, that's how you get in. So teams that were just on the outside looking in, that's kind of what you need to do to make it in 2025. Shout out to everybody, by the way. Casey Willison, thank you for watching tonight. Roll Mets. Football season is almost here. It is. It's just 6 weeks from today, and we're going to be in Olathe, Kansas to start things off. Midwest Sports Saturday will be up there for that. So definitely you want to watch that. It'll be, I believe, a 4 o'clock start time. A lot to take place between now and then. So shout out there. Jeff, thank you for watching tonight. I want to give a shout out to everybody. I appreciate you guys watching tonight and being a part of the broadcast. Again, let's see if I can make this thing show up. Ever had things show up on the computer? These little announcements or notifications at the bottom for things that I'm not even coming anywhere close to doing. Roll Stangs, another person who clearly is making his affiliation known tonight. Jeff, thanks for watching tonight. Appreciate that. All right, let's look here. Okay, you know what? Who needs a playoff win? Everybody needs a playoff win. That much is certain. Everyone needs a playoff win. You have to get there to get the playoffs. So we talked about who might be on the outside, could make it in this year. But is there any team or is there any group of teams that needs a playoff win badly? The Sooner Athletic Conference needs a playoff win badly. And I'm talking about badly needs a playoff win. Let's go back to the map here and let's look at something with the Sooner Athletic Conference and just talk about how bad does this conference need a playoff win? Well, let's look at the graph here. Let's go to the map. When I taught history, I would say, let's go to the map, shall we? Well, we've already seen our map of the United States. Let's look at the graph here. Sooner Athletic Conference in the playoffs. The Sooner Athletic Conference has sponsored football only since 2018. Now, before that, a number of the teams in the Sooner Athletic Conference were members of the CSFL. I told you that abbreviation would come back a little bit later on in the show. And this is a breakdown of what the Sooner Athletic Conference has done in the playoffs. 2024, they had two teams. They had OUAZ and Texas Wesleyan. Both teams lost. 2023, Louisiana Christian made its way out of that three-way tie at the top, and they lost. Arizona Christian in 2022 traveled to Morningside and lost. OUAZ traveled to Morningside the year before that and lost. Arizona Christian, back in that weird 2020-2021, the spring playoffs, traveled to Kaiser. My personal favorite, by the way, we were talking about how far apart are these things and how much of a trip is it to go from one to the other? 2,341 miles. I think that's right. 24 miles, give or take 17. All right. Arizona Christian traveled all that distance just to get beat in a playoff game. So I hope they got some sun there while they were at it. 2019, OUAZ had to travel to College of Idaho to get absolutely blown out. And in 2018, it was Langston, the first team to represent the Sooner Athletic Conference in football, just a 6-point game on the road at Kansas Wesleyan. So it's been a lot of road trips for the Sooner Athletic Conference. The only time there was a matchup that didn't feature a road trip for the SAC was this year, and Texas Wesleyan had to go undefeated in the regular season to snag that home playoff game in the NAIA. This is a conference that needs a win, and I mean desperately needs a win. Hasn't had a win before. Let's take this a little bit farther, okay? Let's go back even more than that and take this a little bit farther. Before there was Sooner Athletic Conference sponsoring football, there was the CSFL. No, not the Collegiate Sprint Football League, the Central States Football League. And there were a number of teams in there that it varied from year to year, but it was, in some cases, it was as much of a scheduling alliance. Oklahoma Panhandle State was NAI, then it was Division II, and while it was Division II, didn't have a whole lot of teams to play in its area, so it had a scheduling alliance with the CSFL at that point in time. I will point out, too, that some seasons the CSFL didn't make it to the playoffs. We'll get to that. However, 2014, Langston made it, got beat by Grandview. 2010, 4 years earlier, Northwestern Oklahoma made it, got beat by Sioux Falls. Langston in 2009 got beat. Northwestern Oklahoma beat Friends 42-7 in 2008. Well, didn't they win a game there? Yes. The result stood, but it turns out they were playing with ineligible players, so they didn't play Carroll the next week. The NAI let the result stand, which I like that a little bit because, it did let the results stand because it's what happened on the field. Friends didn't advance, but they went on. 2007, Northwestern lost to Sioux Falls. 2004, Northwestern lost to Azusa Pacific. This is a conference, and now even before this in the CSFL, this area of the NAI has not won a football game, let's go ahead and take it farther, since 2003. Wow. Man, it's been now 22 seasons since the Sooner Athletic Conference or the CSFL have won a game. Now, Northwestern, by the way, that year makes it all the way to the championship game. Beats Tabor, beats Dickinson State, beats Sioux Falls, loses to Carroll in the championship game. Northwestern did it as the number 6 seed that year. But I want to look back at something, too, really quickly. And just to point out there, look at that note up there at the top. There were some seasons the CSFL didn't make it to the playoffs. This is back in the time of the 16-team playoff, number one. But it was back when a team had to be ranked in the top 20 in the country to even be a legitimate team in the playoffs. So you were not allowed to make it to the playoffs. Didn't matter if you won your conference. Didn't matter what your record was. What mattered was that you were in the top 20 in the country according to the rankings, and they were coaches' rankings. And it's one of those things, too, that the I want to point out how good the NAI is doing right now. The NAI did it right. And the NAC, the National Administrative Council, did it right in removing the stipulation or whatever it is of the rankings being a part of your opportunity to make it the playoffs. Now, they had moved it to where, well, it's not the top 20, now it's the top 25. And if you win your conference, it's fine. But at-large bids still have to be in the top 25 in the rankings. They've taken that out as well for 2025. Absolutely love that. And there's just opportunity for things to be done wrong. And I want to point that out, and I'll go back and I'll just tell the story right now. I mean, this is one of those stories that, I look at, and granted, because I'm based in Oklahoma, then it reminds me of these things. Langston's an Oklahoma school. I follow Langston. I remember back in 2013, Langston played a ridiculous out-of-conference schedule. Now, think about this for just a moment. Langston played Northern Colorado, Division II, lost. Incarnate Word, Division II, lost. Nicholls State, Division I, lost. Northwestern State, not Northwestern Oklahoma State, Northwestern State out of Natchitoches, Louisiana, Division I, lost. 0-4, but then went 6-0 in the CSFL. Langston in 2013 did not make the playoffs because in the final ranking after the regular season was done, they were ranked number 21. Not in the top 20. Didn't matter that they did not lose to an NAI school all year long. What matters is that, according to the coaches' rankings, they were number 21. If this story sounds familiar, it should, because I want to bring up 2022. There was a team, upstart team, hadn't had a program for very long. That team's name was Kaiser. Kaiser is not afraid of anyone, absolutely no one. And the pre-conference schedule for Kaiser had them winning an NAI game, then playing on the road at the number 2 team in Division II in Valdosta State, playing them close and losing. They played against another Division II team in Mississippi College and lost. They played another Division I team in Lindenwood and lost, and started their season 1-3. But in conference play, they went 6-0. Won their conference. They were 7-3 heading into the playoffs. And fortunately for them, they did make the top 20. That Kaiser team went all the way to the championship game. They were the number 11 or number 12 seed in the playoffs that year. I know the seeds don't really matter, but they were the number 11 or number 12 seed in the playoffs that year. And they upset team after team after team before finally falling to Northwestern in the championship game. And I'm sure there were coaches out there who knew what Kaiser was made of. Who knew that even though their record said 1-3 to start the year, don't sleep on these guys? Who knew that when they were 7-3, and even though there were other teams that were undefeated or had just one loss, don't sleep on these guys because Coach Sosha has a team of Seahawks that are ready to play. And they did just that. And I ask you, what could have happened if Langston had been allowed to play? Kaiser took that national championship game opportunity, got the experience, and the next year made it back to the championship game and won the whole thing. And the next year made it back to the championship game for a third consecutive year. But would that have happened if they had been on the outside looking in? Langston did get to the playoffs the next year. They lost to Grandview 24-3. But what could they have done in the playoffs that year? Now, I want to go on record as saying, I'm not saying that anything sketchy happened. I'm not saying that Langston was held out of the playoffs by coaches who were ranking them lower than they should have been ranking. I'm not saying that at all. However, what I am saying is that getting rid of the stipulation that you have to be ranked a certain point by coaches who are participating in the playoffs themselves is the best thing the NAI did for the playoffs, period. Moving it from 16 to 20 teams in the field, that was a great move. The other things that they've done along the way to make things better and improve things for the playoffs, those have all been great moves. This is the single best move that the NAI has done for the football championship series, and that is getting rid of the rankings being something that's one of the primary things that the selection committee is looking at. So props to the NAI for that. Just want to point that out. But with that having been said, now we look at it and go, does the Sooner Athletic Conference need a win? Absolutely, it needs a win. All right. Wow, we're 35 minutes into tonight. Really quickly, I want to give a shout out to everybody. By the way, if you have not, let us know in the comment section from where you're watching. Please do right now. We want to hear about you. Please take the time, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We enjoy talking about small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond. This week on Midwest Sportsnet, lots of previews already. We previewed Holly McCamey from Mid-America Christian Volleyball, McKenna Hafner from the Masters Volleyball, Madeline Halford from Texas A&M Texarkana Volleyball, Jeremiah Fiskus from McPherson Football, Shane Ladegi from Briarcliff Football, Mike Morosky from College of Idaho Football. 6 coaches, 6 different states. We're going to talk to all kinds of people, and it's a lot of fun. So definitely you want to see that. Please subscribe to the channel. Now, also in that, let me tell you really quickly, these are fun to listen to if you're just driving down the road. But if you've got to go somewhere and you've got a lengthy trip, let's say you're driving an hour at least to whatever it is or wherever it is you're going. Let me encourage you, which I love all of these coaches, all the interviews. I've loved them all. But put in the one with Coach Morosky. It's about 47 minutes long, which is longer than any other interview we've done this year. There's a lot of wisdom, and it's one of those things that you can put in and just listen to him for a while and gain from it. You can do it with all the coaches. I'm just saying, if this one's a long trip and you just want to put something in, go ahead and play that video with Coach Morosky and just listen to him for a while, because there's a ton of wisdom. All right. You know what? Sometimes we're kind of sesquipedalian around here. We use long words for no apparent reason whatsoever. I like saying prognostication. I don't think we're prognosticating anything, and I really don't think we want to do too much of it. I just like talking about what's going on. Hypotheticals, though. I like to speak hypothetically. Do you ever speak hypothetically? My English is pretty good. I had to have Spanish credits in high school and in college. My Spanish is not as good, but I can speak hypothetically. And I'm kind of a comic book nerd to an extent. I like DC. If you're a Marvel fan, that's great. Marvel had a series, though, that was really good. It was called What If? Had a series back of comics in the 70s and 80s called What If? And they've had a TV show since then. But, I mean, ask the question for things that weren't going to happen all the time. Like what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Or what if Spider-Man saved Uncle Ben, didn't let the criminal kill Uncle Ben? Or what happens if Wolverine killed the Hulk? Those are all things that could be what if. Well, so let's speak hypothetically here. And I want to ask you then from this, what if Grandview loses a regular season game? Now, is that a big deal? Well, actually, it kind of is a big deal. Grandview's won 60 consecutive regular season games coming into 2025. They have a new head coach. Coach Woodley has moved, he probably hasn't moved houses, but he's moved to Division I. And Coach E.J. Peterson, the defensive coordinator, stepping into that role. He's the new head coach there in Des Moines. And so my question is, what happens if Grandview loses a regular season game? Now, I bring that up because they've won 60 straight. This is not without precedent. There are schools who have won, actually, a lot in a row. Most recently, Morningside. Now, for Dave and for Jeff, here's your Morningside reference for the show. Just want to make sure you knew that I've got a Morningside reference on the show. Morningside won 75 straight non-conference games from 2016 to 2023. That's big time. That's a lot of not non-conference game, regular season games. I said non-conference. Sorry. There were a lot of conference games in there. There were a lot of GPAC games in there. 75 straight regular season games. It was huge. Absolutely huge. It wasn't until Northwestern beat them finally that things kind of slowed down just a little bit. Northwestern getting the win that year, and that they were the number one team in the country. And it wasn't even the year that Northwestern won the national championship. They lost to Morningside the year they won the national championship. Carroll, 2006 to 2011, won 54 straight regular season games, and Carroll won 6 national championships in that time. Still didn't win 60 straight. You go back and to the days back in the the late 50s, early 60s, 70s. You go back to Texas A&I, now called Texas A&M Kingsville. Texas A&I won, or actually, Texas A&I had 40 unbeaten games in a row. There was a tie in there somewhere. I didn't mind the ties. I don't know. You may be very glad that there are no more ties in college football. I didn't mind the ties that much, but 40 consecutive unbeaten games for Texas A&I between 1973 and 1977. So Grandview's won 60 straight regular season games. Okay, what if they lose one? Well, the first question you have to ask is, who's going to beat them? Who's going to beat Grandview? Is it going to be Benedictine in the Grandview season opener? Benedictine will already have a game under its belt against Morningside already. Again, who made Benedictine's schedule? Is it going to be Missouri Baptist? That's another it's a heart crossover game. Coach Buryanek has the Spartans getting better every single year. Could be Missouri Baptist. Is it going to be Missouri Baptist in that one? Is it going to be? Sorry, I always look down to see if it's my wife. She's not at the house right now, so I'm looking down just to check to see if that phone call is coming from her. Is it going to be Missouri Baptist? It's going to be Baker. Could be Baker. Coach Regalata's team needs to get a big win during the season. That would be a really big win. Missouri Baptist, again, coming off the best season in program history. Is it going to be a Hart North team? Is it going to be William Penn? Coach Benavidez now, after a couple of 4-win seasons, has his feet under him there, looking to the changes have been made now. The Statesman going to do it. It's Peru State. Peru State's had some good years of late. Is it going to be Graceland? And we're going to continue to talk about that matchup more and more as the season goes on, especially if Graceland's at full strength. Is it going to be Grace? Who beats them? That's the number one question of what if. And then the second thing is, if they lose a regular season game, are they still going to make the playoffs? Well, with one loss, yes. And there are 2 one-loss scenarios in there. So the first one-loss scenario is they lose a crossover game, then they go and they roll through the Hart North. Well, actually, I mean, there's no question they make a playoff game at that point because they've won their division, so they get the automatic bid there. If they lose one in the Hart North, then they're basically a game and a half back to whoever beat them. They can still win the division depending upon the rest of the play light there, but I don't know. I mean, still one loss with the defending national champion. That's likely going to sway a lot of people. Again, I know the selection committee has to think from year to year to year, but one loss and it's defending national champion is likely to coming back. And before you say just one loss, of course they're getting maybe not. You don't have to go that far back. OUAZ was 8-1 in 2023 and didn't make the playoffs. So one loss doesn't necessarily guarantee that you get in. I just think it's one of those things too. So what if they lose a regular season game? Does that mean there's a chink in their armor? Do you want to get, if you're Coach Peterson, do you want to get a loss out of the way and say, okay, let's win the rest of them and win the national championship? There's a whole lot of pressure because you haven't lost a game since 2023. Is there a chink in the armor? Does it provide a game plan for a second loss? I don't know. I think with Jackson Waring coming back, with Coach Martin's defense, who's stepped up and taken Coach Peterson's position as defensive coordinator, I don't know. I think it would be hard-pressed to see this Grandview team with 2 L's on the schedule at the end of the regular season. Could happen, but does it make it? What if Grandview loses that regular season game? I don't think it's the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. All right, let's look here really quickly, and this one is for Henchman 21, and we continue with where we were talking about last week. Most difficult schedule. Who has the most difficult schedule? And Henchman 21 says, if you're not talking about the Frontier Conference, you can't be talking about the most difficult schedule. I don't know if that's exactly right. I don't know if that's necessarily the way it has to be, but who does have the most difficult schedule? Sorry. Little itch. Okay, I'll pitch one from the Frontier Conference, and I'll throw out Rocky Mountain. How about this one for a schedule? You get College of Idaho, Montana Tech twice in the season, but the first of 2, and Montana Western and Carroll as your month of September. That right there is enough to just, make you think, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? Who in the world did we tick off that we have this thrown our direction? Then you start getting into Frontier East play. Valley City State, very tough. Dickinson State, 10 consecutive years that they've made the playoffs. Northern could be coming back. We'll see. It's been a little bit of a challenge the last couple of 3 seasons. Montana Tech, again, there's part 2 of that season. Dakota State, who's just waiting for an opportunity, and Mayville State, who is trending upward too. I mean, these are some tough matchups. So if you want to talk about the most difficult schedule, I think Rocky Mountain would have a say in that. I think that at some point in time that they would definitely, Rocky Mountain would raise their hands and say, I'm sorry, pick us. That's probably us. We may fall in line as the most difficult schedule. Benedictine's pretty tough. Rocky Mountain's pretty tough. We'll see. All right. Let me ask this question. We pitched this at the beginning, though. Let's continue roll along here on college football this week. Thank you for watching. If you're watching the live stream, please let us know from where you're watching, and we want to give you a shout out tonight. Who was the last NAI player taken in the draft? You have to go back a little bit for this one, too. I mean, this is like what we were doing with the Sooner Athletic Conference. Sooner Athletic Conference has never had a playoff win. And you go back to the CSFL, I mean, you're going back a ways here. We're going back a ways here, too. And the reason I bring that up is because I think there's a legitimate shot for an NAI player to be taken in the draft in 2025. And if you don't know who I'm talking about Gerald Monroe, Graceland, receiver for Graceland. Fantastic player. I mean, uber talented. He is the complete package. He's strong, he's fast, he can catch anything that comes his direction. But as we ask this question, though, because is he going to be taken? There have been some good players in the NAI. There are actually 2 players from the NAI that played NAI programs who are in the NFL right now, didn't get drafted. The NAI produces quality talent, and what a number of coaches have said to me this year over the course of the summer is something that I think as much of too. We're looking at college football in its more pure form right now than where you're seeing some of the other places because of NIL and because of transfer and this and that and all, whatever. I think we're seeing great college football in the NAI, but is it enough to catch the folks from the NFL to be able to make that and be willing to expend a draft choice on an NAI player? It's been a while. I mean, some of the players, you go back a little bit, and this is not an exhaustive list here, but I mean, Christian Okoye played for Azusa Pacific when they were NAI. It's back in 1987, played for the Chiefs. Walter Payton, have you ever heard that name before? Walter Payton? Yeah, sweetness. He was fantastic. Jackson State, that was back when Jackson State wasn't Division I and Deion Sanders wasn't coaching them. Jackson State was NAI back in 1975 when Walter Payton was drafted. So currently in the NFL, you have Jeremiah Farms Jr., playing with New England, going into his 3rd year. He was undrafted in 2019. Friends, Andrew Rupsich from Culver Stockton, playing with the Titans, heading into his 2nd year. He was undrafted in 2022. They're part of the active rosters in the NFL as of now. But I'm talking about players from the NAI drafted. I mean, even the great Austin Dodge. And I mean, if you're not familiar with Austin Dodge, Southern Oregon quarterback extraordinaire in the NAI record book, littered through the NAI record book, signed with the Falcons, though, but he was not drafted. That was 2014. By the way, he was recently inducted into the Southern Oregon Hall of Fame back in December of this past year, 2024. So props to Austin Dodge. Congratulations on that. Sammy Hill played for Stillman. Stillman was not Division II back then, actually, when he was drafted by the Detroit Lions. That's back in 2009. Michael Jasper from Bethel University in 2011. Man, I think you may have better records than I do. I didn't have Jasper in that one in Bethel in 2011. So while that's going, wow. May have to redo some of my numbers on this. I go back even farther, and but I was hoping, if I was wrong on this one, and Clint, I appreciate you letting me know if I was wrong on this one. I was hoping someone would have the answer, because I go back even farther, and I didn't realize that that was something that was there. So let me check my records so that I can play along with you here. Do you know which round he would have been drafted in? I know this is a live stream right now, so I don't need to be looking too closely on this. I don't want to waste the time on that to do that. But Clint, you if you know something I don't know, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with what I have at the moment, And then if I need to go further, do you know what round he was taking in? Because I did not see that in my research. So we'll go on down. Oh, you're right. Compensatory pick. Michael Jasper. How about that? Name does sound familiar, doesn't it? All right. Good job, Clint. 7th round compensatory pick right there. That's good. I want to go. I'll go ahead and pitch some of these other numbers to you to go along the way with that. Larry Bracken's 2005. That was a community college, by the way, at Pearl River there in Mississippi. Patrick Creighton and Derek Ward back in 2004. So Michael Jasper in 2011 from Bethel. That's Bethel, Tennessee, not Bethel, Kansas. And Derek Ward in 2004. Creighton played with the Cowboys. Ward played, he was drafted by the Giants. He played 8 years too. And where I lived at the time, I still live in Southeast Oklahoma, but at the time it was, this part of the country are big Dallas Cowboy fans. So if you lived in the state of Oklahoma and there's a player from Oklahoma drafted like Creighton was, that was a big deal. So you go back to 2011 with Jasper. It's been a long, long time. Can Gerald Monroe be the next person drafted in the NFL? Clint, thanks for chiming in, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks for being a part of the community up here and letting us know. Connor, I think part of what it is for Monroe, he wants to stay one more year and play with Coach Ross. He knows there's something good going on with Coach Ross, and he wants to be a part of that. Also, he's going to bring up some numbers. I mean, you're looking at his numbers last season, big, could have been bigger. He does have the single game receiving record now, 387 yards receiving in that season opener against Doane, 5 receiving touchdowns in that. Big deal. Can he get a single season record? That's going to be tough. Connor Niles has that, 2,639 yards. That was back in 2018. That was a championship season. And the reason I mention that, too, is the fact that there's some more games that add to those numbers. So that's a big deal. But, yeah, Monroe on the president's list with his academic prowess in the spring. Got the student part of it down. It's got the athlete part of it down. Saw a picture recently on social media. The guy's ripped. Absolutely. So he has the talents, and the scouts know he exists. So is he going to be that next person down the line? I think it's going to happen. I think the NAI gets another draft choice. And I realize, by the way, in the state of Iowa, we're talking about Lamoni right now. Don't think I've forgotten that there's a pretty talented player in Des Moines as well, but we'll talk about him another time, though. Gerald Monroe could be that next NAIA player. So shout out to him on that. And then the last thing on the schedule this evening, and again, if you haven't already chimed in, please do in the chat tonight. Clint, from where are you watching, man? Let us know from where you're watching tonight. We'd appreciate that. One last thing. Here's the question. Have you met Ted? And I pitched this one because my son has, my wife and I will watch a TV show from start to finish, and we enjoy comedies. We want to watch things that aren't, too wild, but we enjoy things that make us laugh. So what we've been watching of late was How I Met Your Mother. And the question through How I Met Your Mother and the game that's played regularly in there is, have you met Ted? So I want to ask you, have you met Ted? And we are saying this in line with the fact that 18 of 94 coaches are in their first year, heading into their first season with their program here in 2025. We talked about 6 of them last week. Let's talk about 6 more this week. Boston Bryant at Union Commonwealth. I was defensive coordinator for the past 2 seasons, so you guys can get to know some of these coaches too. New head coach at Union Commonwealth. Cumberland's for 6 years before that. He was in the class of 2017, played Division I ball at Wofford on the defensive line, and a 2-time captain there. And he's a native of Williamsburg, Kentucky, which is only about a half an hour down the road there. So, I mean, that's not bad. That's a pretty close to being a hometown kid right there, coming back to be the head coach. So shout out to him. All right, Mid-America Nazarene, Ivan Cordova. Got to visit with Coach Hansen earlier this week. The former coach at Mid-America Nazarene had a lot of good things to say about Coach Cordova. He was the interim back in February and then elevated to head coach. He was the defensive coordinator for the past 4 seasons, was also at Whittier before the program shut down. They're restarting that Division III football program, I believe, for 2026. Defensive coordinator at Eastern New Mexico and also New Mexico Highlands. Defensive line at the University of New Mexico, Division I school, and a class of 2009 from San Bernardino. Riley Murphy's taking over at OUAZ. That's a big move across the country from St. Thomas all the way to Arizona, to Surprise, Arizona. And it was a little bit of a surprise that the OUAZ spot came open. However, it's going to happen. Riley Murphy steps in, was the offensive coordinator in 2024, Gannon Division II school for a couple of seasons, Lake Erie Division II head coach for 3 years there, Fayetteville State, Dixie State, Western New Mexico, all Division II programs. And he's had quite a run there. Offensive coordinator and assistant head coach at Western New Mexico. Played for Grossmont Junior College his first 2 seasons, won a national championship as a quarterback there, and then played Division I ball at Indiana State in the class of 2008. And I believe also the Conference Newcomer of the Year one season too. So there's Coach Riley, the new head coach at OUAZ, Coach Chris Springer at Bethel there, taking over for Coach Jasper. I think we've mentioned that once already tonight, haven't we? Defensive coordinator at Bethel, working there on the defense for 8 seasons. Had a year at Georgia Military College, then Western Kentucky Division I defensive coordinator there. Eastern New Mexico, coached the wide receivers there for a season. Played at Bethel, then Lindenwood, and was with the class of 2003 as his master's degree from Western Kentucky. So shout out to him. Mark Thurston, who came to Rio Grande. He was originally going to be the defensive coordinator, but the head coach, who was originally named head coach, They decided to go a different direction, so they go with Coach Thurston, and he was with the defensive line with Norfolk State in 22 and 23. Took time out last year to help build up the program there in Rio Grande. It's going to be its first season here in 2025. Lake Erie, D2 there, defensive coordinator, defensive line. Iowa State, worked in quality control and scouting and other things for 4 seasons at that, obviously, Division I program. Toledo, Division I as well. Norfolk State for 9 years in a first stint there, and coached a high school in Miami, Florida for a couple of seasons after playing ball at West Virginia as a member of the class of 1999. And we start to wrap things up here as we're closing in on the hour mark here. So we'll talk about Coach Flynn, and Coach Flynn has two charts here. We're going with 2 different graphics for him. He was a part-time head coach or football coach at Colorado Springs Christian School in 24. At Ponderosa High School for 8 years, the head coach. Hinckley High School for a season. Liberty High School for 5 years there. This guy has coached the high school level, especially around the Colorado area, for a number of years and is known for what he does with the offensive side of the ball. As 2-sport star at Judson of the class of 1989. And he was also named a distinguished alumnus for Judson back in 2017. But wait, there's more. Have you met Ted? Well, Sean Flynn, he's done a lot. He has 2 master's degrees. So he has his bachelor's, he has 2 master's degrees, one in science from Colorado Technical Institute and one in theology from Fuller Theological Seminary. His first he was with First Technology Sales as the VP and owner of the business, getting things started up. AdPro, president and partner of the business. This guy's a businessman. He's been with Phil Long dealerships in Colorado. By the way, this is a car dealership business in Colorado, mainly in Colorado Springs, but also outside of there, and even with, I think, a location in New Mexico, too, for 23 years, and is currently the chief operating officer and part owner. Oh, and he's been a member of the board of trustees for Judson as well. Did Coach Flynn bring his resume into the meeting when he was meeting possibly for the job and just drop the whole thing down and it made a resounding boom? Coach Flynn's resume is huge, absolutely huge. A businessman, a football coach, and a board of trustees. I mean, this guy's started business. He's run businesses, owned businesses, and meanwhile, along the way, knows a little bit about offensive football. Judson could be in good shape. So this is a team I would definitely watch out for. in the mid-states this year. And whether it finds its footing in 2025 or not, if Coach Flynn stays there, I think it's going to be a team to watch. And I think you're going to have to watch to see what they do on the offensive side of the ball. That's a big deal. All right, we're wrapping things up. From college football this week, man, I appreciate Clint chiming in tonight. Casey, Jeff for being a part of the program, James, Dave, all of you for being a part of the program tonight. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. It really does help. I honestly, and I say this just about every time, I have no idea what it really does for the algorithm, but it's encouraging, and we like to do it. We enjoy talking small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond, and we thoroughly enjoy talking college football right here on College Football This Week. There's a lot more to go over in the NAIE in the 2025 preseason, so I encourage you to come back next Thursday night. We'll be live one more time on Thursday night, and we have a few more questions to ask. Maybe you'll have the answer to that. I really appreciate you taking time for that tonight. In the meantime, shout out to all of you. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet is she'll be back tomorrow, so I get to see her. So I may have to actually spend time with her as opposed to studying football all week. Who knows? That could be a part of it too. And to my kids who are still at the house, shout out to them. Shout out to all you guys for watching tonight. Be sure to be live next week on Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and many more preview interviews are here on the channel too as we get ready for the 2025 football, volleyball seasons, and more. Thanks for watching again. God bless you. You guys have a great night, and we will see you very soon.